Okay, guys, so tonight we're going to be talking about royal icing and meringue powder. And royal icing is one of those things, it's like three ingredients, you know? It's powdered sugar, it's water, it's meringue powder. Or if you choose, like some people use egg whites, and uh, cream of tartar or lemon juice. I prefer meringue powder because meringue powder, I find I get a really fluffy royal icing. I really love fluffy royal icing. And that's why I came out with this fluff and stuff meringue powder. And it's funny because when I was naming this, Debbie said to me, she said, we gotta figure out a good name. What do you think of when you think of royal icing? And for me, it's fluffy, like a cloud. So that's how that was kind of born. But meringue powder is a very special thing because it's shelf stable, it's safe. You could use pasteurized egg whites, but even still, you're not going to have the same shelf life on the counter or in the fridge that you will with meringue powder. So this meringue powder does what all meringue powders do, makes royal icing. What makes this one a little bit different is that you don't need to use as much for every pound of royal icing that you make. So typically, for a pound of powdered sugar, typically meringue powders call for 3 tablespoons of meringue powder. This one calls for 2. So you're going to get a third more product out of a bag. So it's cost effective. Another great thing about it is that, pardon me, it's sold in Canada and in the US through Debbie at Icing Images and Learn to Cake here in Canada. It is nut free. It is tree nut free, peanut free, titanium dioxide free, which for me is really important. It's an additive that a lot of meringue powders have that I don't feel is necessary. This icing is very white. There's really no need to add any more white food coloring to it, which is what titanium dioxide is. It's gluten free and it is kosher. I'm trying to think if I forgot anything else. I think that's about it, but I really love it. It contains vanilla, so you don't have to add vanilla to it. If you want like a bigger hit of vanilla, you can certainly add more. And it also contains corn syrup solids. So you don't need to add corn syrup to it either. If you wanted to add more corn syrup, you can, but there's no need to. And if you own a Big Blue or a Little Blue or a Mega, what's really nice about not having titanium dioxide in this and not having to put liquid corn syrup in your royal icing, it behaves a lot nicer with color from your printer. So
Yeah.
because titanium dioxide almost acts like a food bleach. So if you've got that in your icing, that is going to fight your colors. So that's another thing. Like when people are making royal icing and they're like, oh, I see in groups people mention, I get color bleed, and everyone tells them, put white food coloring, put titanium dioxide in your royal icing. And that sort of, to me, color bleed usually happens when you oversaturate your icing and put too much food coloring in, so it starts to bleed. And if titanium dioxide whitens your icing and you want to make your icing red and you're putting that white in, you're going to have to add even more red to make it red. And then you're kind of defeating the whole purpose, right? So titanium dioxide, it's not necessary in royal icing. Royal icing is naturally white. That's
Yeah.
pretty bright white. Okay, so today I'm going to take you through the steps of, I've already made a batch of royal icing, and I'm going to quickly go over how I made it and what it looks like when it's finished. Because a lot of cookie decorators also don't mix their icing long enough. I'm going to say it. 3 minutes is not long enough. 5 minutes is even cutting it close. The more air you incorporate into your royal icing, the softer your bite is going to be. Um, the more control you're going to have when you're doing um, flowers and things like that. So you want a really stiff, fluffy peak for flowers and things like that. And I'm going to go over that as well. But soft bite, the more air that's incorporated in your royal icing, the easier it is to bite. So think about hard candy like a lollipop. There's no air in that. And when you bite it, it's like you really have to bite hard. Now think of sponge toffee or honeycomb. I think you guys call it honeycomb in the States. I'm not sure. Sponge toffee or honeycomb is that same sugar, hot sugar, with baking soda, which creates all those air bubbles. It's the same caramelized sugar, but when you bite sponge toffee, you can bite it easily. So there's air. And think of peanut brittle. Peanut brittle has little air pockets in it from baking soda as well. So the more air something has, the easier it is going to bite, the less crunchy it is. So that's key. So you want to be mixing your icing. I like to go to about 7 minutes. And depending on the environment, the weather changes every day. Sometimes I even go to 10. So I'm going to switch my camera around. I'm going to get rid of my iPad here. And I think Stacy's going to switch my camera over to, there we go. Good job, Stacy. I'm going to move my iPad over. And I'm going to take my sweater off because I'm sweating. It is hot in here. Okay. Like, get rid of that bowl. Bear with me, guys. Okay. So I already talked about the show, and we're going to be giving away 2 tickets to the show as well. And I've mixed some royal icing here. I'm going to move my mixer over so you guys can see. Raise my camera up. So I have a damp towel over my icing. And I'm going to turn my mixer on just for a second here, just so you can see in the bowl. So I let this mix for probably about 7 minutes. And do you see around the mixer, the paddle, there's like a ball of icing, like a wad of icing right in the middle of that paddle, right there. That tells me that I've incorporated enough air. It also helps to pull your paddle out. And we have some really nice stiff peaks, not going anywhere. And really, if you're going to pipe flowers, that's how stiff you want your icing to be. You want to start with a really stiff, fluffy icing, even if you want a flood or a puff, okay? Because those air bubbles not only give you a softer bite, but they're also going to help your cookies dry faster too. So I'm just going to get all the big air bubbles out because this has been sitting for a little while. And also too, when you make your royal icing, you always want to use a paddle. A whip will incorporate too much air too fast. And you always want to mix on low speed on your KitchenAid, or number 2 being the very fastest speed. So low and slow and with a paddle, and make sure your bowl and your paddle and anything that touches the icing, your spoon, your spatula, is completely grease free. So lots of soapy water when you're washing, or you can use vinegar and lemon juice on a paper towel just to wipe everything down, but everything should squeak. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way. And I've baked some cookies, and I'm going to mix some royal icing in various consistencies tonight so that you can see what they look like, and I'm going to talk about what what you can achieve with each consistency. And these cookies here, just because they're in the shot, I'm going to talk about them really quick. This is my new Halloween class because that's what I do. I teach. And I did some stained glass. So these were done with Fluff and Stuff meringue powder. But can you see? They're like, this is the Fluff and Stuff isn't going to make it this shiny, but that's part of my class. So we're doing stained glass, super glossy, and this is not done with piping gel or isomalt. It's a secret. So that's part of my class for what you can do with cookies and make them shiny and like stained glass. Okay.
Let me stop you first
Yep.
and let me get into some of these comments. Do you prefer a paddle and KitchenAid mixer? She says definitely a paddle. I guess she's asking about the KitchenAid mixer in that one. Do you like your KitchenAid?
Yeah, I do like my KitchenAid. I also use an Anchorstrom mixer.
Okay.
Um, I've done royal icing with my Anchorstrom and it's been great. But I typically reserve my Anchorstrom for cookie dough, cake batters, pizza dough, bread dough, and I usually just use my KitchenAid for buttercream and royal icing.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I do like my KitchenAid,
You
and
answered two
I
questions
like
there. Good job.
yeah I like them both for different reasons.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
Sue wants to know, is that a low speed you're mixing at?
Yeah, so I started at low, which is stir on the KitchenAid, and then I went up to two. I never go faster than speed two.
Okay. And
Yeah,
Donna, can you be more specific on your question about the glaze? Um, and hold on.
yeah,
Jill, marshmallow, I'm not sure what that question is because remember, guys, we're moving pretty quick. So I have to go back and ask questions. So sometimes if you can be a little more specific, that helps. Crystal
yeah.
wants to know where are the classes? Do you offer online classes?
I do. So all of my classes except for beginner classes, the only classes I do in person are like super beginner classes. Everything else is online. I post them on my Instagram page, which is Learn to Cake underscore Susan Trianos. But as soon as you put Learn to Cake, it pops up. Um,
Yeah.
I I will post about my classes on my Instagram and my Facebook, which is also Learn to Cake. And I do
Okay.
them on Facebook. They're live. And the difference with my Facebook classes are that they are not pre recorded. I do them live and I don't just decorate. I will do one step at a time. And after I do one step, I demonstrate a second time. And while I'm demonstrating the second time, that's when the students do their work. So I give everyone time to
Gotcha.
work along
Okay.
with me
And then
rather than me just kind of blasting through.
okay, Lynn wants to know, well, first she says, OMG, how do you have time for a Halloween class? When is it going to be held? Sorry, she wants all the explanation points and stuff.
That's a good question. I think I'm going to have it the weekend before my trade show. So I think that's the weekend of the week, crazy of me, but the weekend of the 11th of October.
Awesome. So October 11th, and just go to Facebook or Instagram, type in Learn to
Yeah,
Cake, or you can go to our website too, learntocake.com,
yeah.
and find all that
And
information.
right. And this class, I'm going to be posting about this class either tomorrow or Thursday morning.
Okay.
And there will be
If
a
you,
link in my
I'll share
bio
it.
that you can click on and it'll take you right to the page with all the info. But this
Okay.
is nice. soft to bite and it tastes delicious. And I was really happy with how that turned out. And it's not like I was thinking of using piping gel, but if you live in a humid area, piping gel will rehydrate and get sticky. And then when you package it, it's going to be sticking to the bag. And yeah, so this
Got it.
won't do that.
Okay. And Jill said stained glass dash marshmallow. Are you following? I'm
Nope.
not. I am. Okay. Help us out there, Jill. We'll get you. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
it's puffy part marshmallow and a plug to learn to cake. I joined and it's content rich. She's just plugging that.
Oh,
So
thank you.
so
No, there's no marshmallow on this. It's all royal icing.
okay.
Yeah.
And Lisa says, okay, you got to get ready because I can tell there's some personality to this. OMG, take her classes. You will never be disappointed. She is the best.
Well, thank you so much. Honestly, like that means the world to me, eh? Because when I teach, I'm always so nervous that people aren't getting enough information or they're bored or I'm giving too much information. Like I'm always very nervous when I teach. That I'm not nervous to teach, but nervous that people aren't getting everything they need from me. So I overshare.
Okay, and the last question, and then we're going to stop until she has
Yep.
another break. If signed up for the class, and this is from Laura Tiernan, will we get a list of ingredients needed right away so we can work along? And I think you answered that with
Yeah.
before the question was asked.
Yeah, so as soon as when I post a class, it's usually within 2 days that I have the supply list up. And when in my Facebook, I make it really easy to find everything because I've taken classes through Facebook. And after the class is done and I want to go back to refer to something, I'm scrolling to try and find the video or whatever. So I set up guide tabs in my Facebook, and in under guides, there's the recipes in one folder, all the videos in another folder. I do prep videos to help you get ready for class. I often will do a video on how to mix your colors. Everything's in a folder and guides so that you don't have to scroll and search through the feed and
Gotcha.
go through all everyone's questions and posts to find what you're looking for. So
Gotcha.
yeah. Yeah.
All
But
right, you're
supply list, yep,
back to the good stuff.
supply list is usually up within 2 days. Okay. So we have some stiff royal icing. It's nice, a lot of air in it. You see how that peak, it's not bending at all. It's really nice and stiff. So this is what you want to use when you are piping flowers. I'm going to make this pink so that we can see it a little better. And I use Artisan Accents. It's my favorite color to use. That's what I paint with too. I don't think they get enough recognition, this brand. So it's, to me, it's the only, I have an online store and it's the only food coloring I sell because I just love it. But this is what you want to use when you're piping like borders, like shell borders, flowers. I see some cookies online too where the icing is a little softer. And again, that's because people are under mixing their icing and their flowers are like saggy. They don't hold their shape or their shells aren't really sharp and defined. And that's because their icing isn't whipped enough. So you want a really nice stiff peak, nice and fluffy, low and slow, and you get this really beautiful stiff peak. So I'm going to, as I go, I'm going to demonstrate something from each consistency that I mix. And this first one, I'm going to pipe a rose and sort of like a little daisy shape. Okay, so I've got my tipless bag here and where did my scissors go? There they are. So I'm going to cut my bag. I'm going to put a number, I think this is a 102 or a 103 rose tip or petal tip. And for cookies, I don't like to use a 104. I find 104 a little bit big because cookies are small and you don't want to have like tons of icing in your cookie, right? So I'm just going to get some of this stiff icing in my bag. I'm going to cover up my bowl so it doesn't dry out. Very important. And here we go. I have a rose nail and I have some parchment squares. So I'm just going to show you when you're working with really stiff icing, how beautiful your flowers turn out. Because roses, if your icing's not stiff, they're just going to look like big blobs. So I have my tip. The longer part of the tip is facing down and it's the part that's wider. The opening is wider. And I'm just going to start by twirling my rose nail. My tip is at a 45, like 45-degree angle in. And as we pipe and our rose opens, we go to a 45-degree angle out. Okay. So I'm just twirling 2 rows. There we go. And I'm not going to get into too much how the rose is made, but I just want to show you how beautiful and stiff and how this flower really holds its shape because the icing is nice and fluffy and full peak. Okay. And that's a nice size rose. That's probably about the size of a nickel or a quarter. Nothing too huge for the cookie. Okay, so that's the rose. I would pull it off my nail, set it aside, let it dry. And because there is a lot of air in that icing, if I put that in my dehydrator, in about a half an hour, I could pick that up and handle it and put it on my cookies because it would dry really quickly. The center wouldn't be completely dry, but it would definitely be strong enough that I could manhandle it a little bit. So that's a rose. And again, like if you were piping shell borders around your cookie, this is the type of icing that you're going to want to use. So there, I'm going to put a little bit more icing on my nail. This is a little template that I printed online. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 sections. So when I do templates, I will look up circle divided into 12, circle divided into 5, circle divided into 6, depending on what flower I'm piping. So this one I have 12. And when I just print them, I cut them out and I just put tape on the front and back, packing tape, before I cut it out. And then I can clean them and I have them forever. So stick that down. I'm going to put another piece of parchment on here, stick that down, and I am ready to pipe. So with the rose, I had the longer part of the rose nail down, and I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to find a section, and I'm going to try and do this sideways so you guys can see. And I have my tip, that longer part touching my rose nail, and a slight angle here. I'm not all the way up like this. It's almost flat to the rose nail. And I'm going to squeeze and pull. Go to the next section, squeeze and pull. All the way around in each section. Okay? You can make them as big or as small as you want, depending on how hard you squeeze. And there's like a little daisy, and you can put some royal icing in the middle, some puffy royal icing, which is the next consistency we're going to do. And I'm going to do some writing. And that will also help strengthen the flower too, having that icing in the center. Okay, so beautiful flowers. You can dry this on a curved, um, something curved to give it some movement. And yeah, and these would dry really, really quickly because of all that air. Okay, so that's flowers and what you can do with stiff royal icing. So shell borders and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to set my bag aside. And the next consistency I'm going to do is puffy icing. Puffy icing, and I'm going to get this back in my bowl, squeeze it out of my bag. There we go. Not a pretty pink.
Gorgeous.
Okay. So puffy icing. Puffy icing can be used to outline flooded cookies. I tend to outline with my flooding icing and use the same consistency because I don't like having a million bags. But sometimes beginners tend to like to have a thicker icing outline their cookie to act as like a dam, and then they fill in from there. Um, but again, I'm a step skipper and I don't love having a ton of bags. So I don't do that. But another thing that this consistency is good for is like big polka dots and things that you want to look puffy on your cookie. Let's say you were piping a bow. You wouldn't want your bow to look flat. You would want it to look puffy and with some dimension. And um, writing. If you write on a cookie, it's nice to have the writing puffy as well. Polka dots, all that kind of stuff. So I just have water here in a squirt bottle. And I start with a little bit of water. That was probably about 3/4 of a teaspoon. I never measure. And we're going to make this icing a soft peak. I call it sort of marshmallow fluff consistency, um, or like toothpaste. Okay. So right now, it's definitely softer. My peak here has a slight curve to it. This has a slight curve, and I would consider this to be almost a medium peak. It's still pretty stiff though. Okay, so we need more water. So let's do that. I'll add another, let's say 3/4 of a teaspoon. Mix that in. And what do you guys use? Like a, some people call this piping consistency too. I don't refer to it as piping consistency because all the icing gets piped, right? So we're starting to get a little softer. This is more of like a medium peak, I would say. And if I put my spoon in the bowl and agitate it, do you see what's happening? I'm not stirring, I'm just jiggling. The icing is getting smoother, right? But I have to jiggle a lot to really get that to happen. So this is still too thick for what I want to do. So yeah, give some comments and tell us what you use, um, marshmallow fluff consistency or soft peak or toothpaste consistency.
Kathy calls it a hybrid consistency.
That's a good term too, because it's like right in the middle of stiff and runny, right?
And Sue Holly says it's the outline consistency,
Yeah,
and that's what Stacy calls it too.
yeah. So this is getting softer. Let's do the jiggle test. I don't want to have to sit there and jiggle my icing for a long time because time is money and we all like to go to bed at night, right? And not stay up till 3 a.m. decorating cookies. So I don't want my icing to be so stiff that I have to sit there with my piping bag or my scribe and sit there for like 10 seconds to smooth it out. So let's put another let's say 3/4 teaspoon. You can use a spray bottle too. I know Nick Lodge used to do that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And
So let's
Dr. Susie says the same thing, piping.
piping, yeah. So see the dollop now is getting like a lot looser. So let's give a jiggle test. And for me, that's still too much jiggling. So I'm going to go, we're getting there though. And after you do this a bunch of times, you're just going to know by feel. Okay.
Kathy Lorenzo says, wait, I thought we were supposed to stay up till 3 a.m. or later.
Kathy
Remember the
Lorenzo,
late-
her company is Wicked something, right?
Yes, that's her.
Yes. Yeah. The lady we always see at CookieCon.
Yes.
Yes, lovely lady. The one that made you the t-shirt.
Yes. And I found my
Yeah.
t-shirt.
Yeah.
I kind of knew where it was, but I actually went to that part of the office the other day. I'm like, hey, there it is.
So we're getting really nice and gloopy. And let's do the jiggle test. It's definitely smoothing out a lot easier. I'm going to give it one last shot and then I'm going to call it quits. And we'll see. And then I'm going to actually pipe this cookie. And you can see that cookie there says Royal. And I printed that with my Big Blue. I love my Big Blue because all of my cookies, and I'm going to post to your group, Deb, um, even if I don't print an image on the cookie, I always flood or dip my cookies, and then however I'm decorating them, let's say I was going to do SpongeBob, I could print, not that, and I'm saying SpongeBob, I know it's a licensed character, but everybody knows who he is. That's why I'm using that as an example. Or let's say a flower. I would print an outline of whatever it is I wanted to pipe on my cookie. And if the flower was pink and the leaves were green, that's what I would do in my software so that if I missed a spot and the edge showed some of that pink or green, it's not going to make a difference. And that way my cookies are very consistent. They all look the same and I don't need to bring out my projector. So I piped Royal, the word Royal in pink because I'm going to pipe right on top of it with this pink. Okay, so the icing by itself is starting to relax and settle. And if I give it a little jiggle, it smooths right out. Okay, so I'm going to pop some of this in a piping bag. Give it one last stir here. And then we're going to pipe the word Royal. Okay. And what time is it? 7:50. I better hurry up. See,
Yeah,
you
don't worry
guys,
about it. I know we're going to go long, but there's a lot of information and people have
yeah,
questions. So if
yeah.
you're okay, we're
Oh, I'm
okay.
okay. And I know I always like, I'm like, okay, this time I'm going to be an hour, and I'm always an hour and a half when I come on with you. Okay, so that's in my bag. I'm going to cover my bowl so it doesn't dry out. And I'm going to bring my camera nice and close, and we're going to pipe the word Royal with this toothpaste outline piping, marshmallow fluff, soft peak icing, whatever you call it. So
Gloppy
I'm going
came
to
up, the word gloppy.
gloppy. Yes, gloppy's good. And I just got a warning that my phone is low, so I'm going to plug in my charger super fast, which I brought here. It's handy. There we go. There we go, because I don't want to lose yous. All right. Okay. So here's the word royal. I have, I cut a hole in my bag, probably like a number 2 tip, maybe a 1.5. I always like to start a little smaller. I can always cut it bigger. But okay, let me see if I can get this out of my way a little bit so that my hand doesn't hit the camera. There we go. Okay. So with when you pipe your lettering, you can do one of two things. You can either touch down on the surface, pull your icing up and drag your icing around the letter. Oh, it's getting blurry when I get my hand in the way, huh?
It
And
just
then
changed.
come back and fill in. See how it's very like lumpy right now? This is where you stop squeezing, you use the tip of your bag and you jiggle and it smooths right out. That's going to help prevent cratering. It's going to help um, keep your icing nice and puffy. This could have been a little runnier. I don't like to have to jiggle so much. Okay. So there's the beginning of that letter. Or what I like to do, because it's faster, I just squeeze gently for the thin parts and then squeeze heavier for the thicker parts. But you have to have a little bit more control with your piping because you're squeezing at different pressures, right? You're squeezing heavy in areas and lighter in areas. And you can see right there, right on the inside of the R, I didn't quite cover what I printed, but no one would ever notice that because I printed in the same color that I'm piping with. And that's the beauty of the blue. I can make any part of my cookie design any color that matches
Including
my
blue.
icing.
Including blue.
Yep.
Sorry.
So squeezing heavy when I come down and lighter in my strokes coming up. And I'm not doing the best job here because my camera is in the way. But there we go. Squeezing heavier and lighter, heavy and lighter. Come back and give that a jiggle. Light,
You had mentioned, so I think you mentioned this, if it was a little
a little
more,
looser,
yeah, add a little bit more water, you won't have to
a
jiggle
bit
as
more
much.
water. Yeah. And then you won't have to jiggle. Or you can jiggle just a little bit because if it's too runny, then everything kind of runs in together. And then you also won't get that like puffy looking icing. Okay.
Cool.
So I'm going to cut the hole in my bag a little bigger too, because that's also going to make a difference. I'm going to do this one more time really fast with a bigger hole in my bag. And then because I'm squeezing heavily, when you squeeze heavy, that kind of makes your hand shake and that makes those little rough, like more of a rough surface. But if the bag is at a bigger hole with thicker icing, you don't have to smooth as much because you're not squeezing quite as hard. So let's do that again.
So there's two ways to do this. You can make it a little runnier, but you have to be careful because you can make it too runnier or too thin, or you
Yeah,
can make the hole in the bag just a little bit wider.
right.
Okay. Can I ask a
And
couple questions while you're doing that, or do you want to
yeah,
talk more? Okay. The questions, there's a couple questions. I'm going to say them together because I think you're going to put them together, or you may say, I'm getting to that next, which you might.
yeah, yeah,
Um, Cinnamon asked, does it separate if you put the piping bag into the fridge overnight? She's had that issue.
yeah.
But along with that, hold that thought. I got to go up to where it was. Will you be talking about storing this icing, what you put it in, how long to store it, and can it be frozen? So I feel like
Yeah.
those two questions go together.
Yeah. So, what was the first part?
The first part is if you put a piping bag in the fridge
Oh,
overnight,
yes. Yeah.
will it separate?
So separating happens naturally with all royal icing. I have been told that this one separates a little less than some of the others. Putting it in the fridge overnight definitely helps prevent that. So, you know, I always put my bags, if I'm not going to use them, if I'm using them the next day and I'm not finished my job, I always pop them in the fridge. If so, on the counter, um, I like to, if I'm not using my icing that day or the next day, I like to put it in the fridge. Is it still okay if you leave it out? Absolutely. But there's no harm in putting it in the fridge. Um, if you are a person who likes to leave your icing on the counter for like a week, I would recommend boiling your water and letting it cool because there's a lot of bacteria that can grow in water right from the tap. So I usually use water right from the tap. If I'm not using it on day one or day two, it's going in the fridge. And if I'm not using it within a week, I like to put it in the freezer. Um, and can you leave it in the fridge longer than a week? Of course you can. But for me, I'm always, I always think better safe than sorry. Um, and yeah, and if you are a person who likes to leave it out, no matter what meringue powder, what royal icing you're making, I would use water that's been boiled and cooled personally.
Okay. And we did have some comments about separation. Rachel
Yeah,
says that that it separates less than others, and Stacy added, even with dip consistency, Royal, I make fluff and stuff. I make with fluff and stuff will go a couple of days in the fridge without breaking down. Even if it does break, I can get it back together with a few stirs.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And like separation, like I said, it's a natural thing. There's no way of avoiding it, but I have been told by many people that it separates less. So there's that. Do I need to turn a light on, Debbie?
Hold on.
Is-
I just
I-
sneezed and okay, I'm making sure I unmuted myself because I had to sneeze.
oh,
We could, okay, it's a little bit darker than it
okay.
was. So
Okay.
I
I'm
think a
going to
little
turn
light
up.
will help. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. There we go. All right. I'm just going to squeeze this back in my bowl. There we go. Get rid of this one. And now we're going to do a flooding consistency. And flood, everybody likes a different consistency for flood. Some people like it a little thicker. Some people like it a little runnier. Um, we all kind of, I do a count. Um, and again, the more cookies you make, you're not going to have to count to see how long it takes your icing to smooth out because you just get a feel for it. I find that flooding icing, this is actually a really nice puffy icing consistency too. See how it's gloppy and it's not smoothing out? If I give a jiggle, it does. This is a really nice puffy icing consistency right here. But I find if the flooding icing is a little runnier, let's say a 15-second versus maybe a 22, I do find the icing dries a little bit shinier, um, and less like of a chalky finish, um, which is nice. And when you paint on cookies, if you have a shiny surface, the color sort of glides on the top a little bit better rather than just like soaking into the icing. And if you make a boo-boo, you can wipe it off really easy because the paint sits on top of the icing versus absorbing in. So you have a little bit more work time if you're painting, if your flood is a little runnier and a little shinier. So I do recommend dehydrators too. Okay, but if you are dusting a cookie with edible dust, I prefer a thicker flood because the icing will be chalkier, and I tend not to use the dehydrator because then the dust, if you have a shiny cookie, the dust just kind of swirls around and doesn't really um, color the cookie so much. Like let's say you were doing cheeks on a little cow cookie or something and you were using dust, the chalkier the icing, the less shiny, the more that dust is really going to adhere to your cookie. So yeah, between 15 seconds and 22 seconds is nice for a flood consistency. Again, the runnier it is, the more shine you're going to have on your cookie. And the thicker it is, it'll be a bit duller, but there are advantages to that too if you're using dusts. And really, whatever you like, whatever you're comfortable doing. So, what I mean by counting, I like to take a scoop of icing and drizzle it over itself, and I start counting to see how long it takes for that icing to smooth out by itself. And I've been talking, and this is probably like about a 25-second. And also, everybody counts at different speeds. I have one student, Leslie, who I love dearly. She's become a good friend. She actually uses her stopwatch on her phone when she counts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's probably about a 20-second. Okay. I'm going to put just one little splash more of water and then I'm going to flood a cookie for you guys. And when I mix, I try not to like agitate it too crazy because you're going to incorporate air bubbles. And to me, that looks dreamy and beautiful. So I'm going to fill a bag. And when I get to this consistency, it's hard to scoop and put it in my bag without making a mess. So I just grab a cup and I put it in that way. There we go. That should be enough. Oops, oops, oops.
Are you going to talk about bubbling?
Sorry.
Are you talking about bubbling as we go through?
Yeah. So I don't worry too much about incorporating too many bubbles when I mix my water and my icing when it's going in a bag, because if there are big air bubbles in here and I don't have a huge hole in my bag, as I am squeezing, you can hear like pop, 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 and those bubbles get popped because they're bigger than the opening of the bag. So I don't really have a lot of air bubbles to pop in my cookies when I'm using a bag and flooding. Dipping, that's another story, and that's the last consistency we're going to talk about. And I'm going to talk about bubbles and how I deal with them and all that fun stuff. So let's get in a little tighter, and I'm just going to flood this cookie. I'm going to move the angle so that the camera's not so much in my way. Also, too, when I outline a cookie, a round cookie especially, I'm right-handed, so I pipe my outline counterclockwise, because if I start clockwise and I come this way, my hand usually gets in the way and I can't see where I'm going. So if I go counterclockwise, I can see the edge of the cookie the entire way. If you're left-handed, I would go clockwise. So I'm going to go counterclockwise here, and my hand is going to stay out of the way the entire time. I never lose sight of the edge of my cookie. And I start by touching down on the surface, lifting, and I drag my icing where I want it to go. When I stop squeezing, and I touch down again. Okay, so that's outlined pretty well. So then once that's done right away, so you can use the thicker icing to outline and then flood, but I like to use the same consistency icing. And I go around the edge. Now, if I don't get right to the edge, I kind of stop. I stop squeezing and I use the tip of my bag to push my icing where I want it to go. Now, let's say I didn't outline this very well and the icing came up a little bit. I can squeeze a little heavier and push the icing to adjust that edge that's not perfectly straight. Or let's say I squeeze too much icing there and I'm like, oh, that's going to spill over. Without squeezing, I put my tip in the bag and I pull it into the cookie and that drip disappears. So you can either push your icing closer to the edge or you can pull it in towards the cookie, and then you'll always have like a nice edge. So I squeeze a little heavier, make sure that first row next to my outline is nice and neat, and then I can really squeeze and fill in the rest. So I'm not doing the best perfect like circles here because the camera's in the way of my hand, but I just keep going, whoop, whoop, whoop. Or you can go back and forth. Right here, I feel the icing's a little thick and might spill over. So